Now when the people saw Moses delayed coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aaron and said to him, "Come, make us gods that shall go before us. For as this Moses, the man who brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him." And Aaron said to them, "Break off the golden earrings which are in the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So all the people broke off the golden earrings which were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. And he received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it with an engraving tool and made a molten calf. Then they said, "This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt." So when Aaron saw it, he built on an altar on before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, "Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord." Then they rose early on the next day and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. And the Lord said to Moses, "Go, get down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf and worshipped it and sacrificed to it and said, 'This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt.'" And the Lord said to Moses, "I have seen this people, and indeed it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them. I may consume them, and I will make of you a great nation." Then Moses pleaded with the Lord, his God, and said, "Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people who you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians speak and say, 'He brought them out to harm them, to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them with the face of the earth?' Turn from your fierce wrath and relent from his harm to your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, to whom you swore by your own self and said to them, 'I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever.' So the Lord relented from the harm which he said he would do to his people. And Moses turned and went down from the mountain, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both sides. On the one side and on the other they were written. Now the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, "There is noise of war in the camp." But he said, "It is not the noise of a shout of victory, nor the noise of the cry of defeat, but the sound of singing I hear." So it was as soon as he came near the camp that he saw the calf and the dancing. So Moses' anger became hot, and he cast the tablets out of his hand and broke them at the foot of the mountain. Then he took the calf which they had made, burned it in the fire, and ground it to powder, and he scattered it on the water and made the children of Israel drink it. And Moses said to Aaron, "What did this people do to you that you have brought so great a sin upon them?" So Aaron said, "Do not let the anger of my Lord become hot. You know the people, they are set on evil. For they said to me, 'Make us gods that shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we do not know what has become of him.' And I said to them, 'Whoever has any gold, let them break it off.' So they gave it to me, and I cast it into the fire, and this calf came out. Now when Moses saw that the people were unrestrained, for Aaron had not restrained them, to their shame among their enemies, then Moses stood in the entrance of the camp and said, 'Whoever is on the Lord's side, come to me.' And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together to him, and he said to them, 'Thus says the Lord God of Israel, let every man put his sword on his side, and go in and out from the entrance to entrance throughout the camp, and let every man kill his brother, every man his companion, and every man his neighbor.' So the sons of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and about 3,000 men of the people fell that day. Then Moses said, 'Consecrate yourselves today to the Lord, that he may bestow on you a blessing this day. For every man has opposed his son and his brother.' Now it came to pass on the next day that Moses said to the people, 'You have committed a great sin. So now I will go up to the Lord. Perhaps I can make an atonement for your sin.' Then Moses returned to the Lord and said, 'Oh, these people have committed a great sin and have made for themselves a god of gold. Yet now if you will forgive their sin, But if not, I pray, blot me out of your book, which you have written. And the Lord said to Moses, whoever has sinned against me, I will blot him out of my book. Now therefore go lead the people to the place of which I have spoken to you. Behold, my angel shall go before you. Nevertheless, in the day when I visit for punishment, I will visit punishment upon them for their sin. So the Lord plagued the people because of what they did with the calf which Aaron made.
Will the Lord be with you? Well, last week we found ourselves seeing Moses and the people of Israel as they were going through the Exodus. And as Egypt was coming at them, they were up against the waters of the Red Sea, and they were crying out to the Lord, and the Lord performed a great miracle and parted the Red Sea for them, where they were able to get away from the bondage of Egypt, and they were finally free. Well, since then, about 3 months have passed. And in those 3 months, God has been doing a lot for the people of Israel. So not only has he freed them from bondage, but now he has been leading them at night by a pillar of fire, and then by the day, a great cloud, so that they could continue to see his presence. And they are being led through the wilderness by the Lord. So God is leading them, and at this time, he also provides for them manna, this bread that comes down from heaven as they are hungry. He also starts to provide for them clean drinking water. And then since that point, he has finally brought them to the base of Mount Sinai, the very mountain in which Moses first met the Lord in the burning bush. This is solidifying the promise that God had made Moses that one day you would come to this mountain to worship. So God has been leading them, protecting them, providing for them, and he is now there giving them instructions regarding the law and the covenant that he is making with his people. And then it comes to this moment of the text where Moses is going up to Mount Sinai. He is up there speaking to the Lord, receiving the tablets of the testimony, the 10 commandments on the stone tablets. But while he is up there, the people of Israel below start to become very anxious and impatient. They start to question if Moses has died or if he's going to come back, or maybe God or Moses, they have abandoned them potentially, and now they are stuck in the wilderness below Mount Sinai. So that is where we find our people in this story today. So the people of Israel, they're getting anxious, they're getting impatient. And so what they decide to do as they've been waiting for 40 days and 40 nights, because that's how long Moses has been up there, they start to ask Aaron, who's left in charge while Moses is gone. And what they do is they say, Aaron, make us some gods. Make us some other gods that we can worship that would go before us and lead us like we have been led in the past. Now, Aaron, being a weak leader in this moment, he gives in. He caves into the pressure and he's like, all right, fine. If you want me to make you a god, then give me all of your gold earrings. Now, this probably would have been a lot of the gold that the Egyptians actually gave the people of Israel before they did the Exodus. So what they do is they start pulling out every single person that has gold earrings. They all give them to Aaron. And so Aaron, what he does then, he starts to burn it, melt it. He starts to fasten it together, and he builds this golden calf. Now, this word calf in the Hebrew, sometimes when we think of it, we think of a really small animal, maybe something weak. But to them, it probably actually would have meant a reference to like a very young bull in its prime. So this is probably a bull, a young bull that is being worshipped here. So he fastens it, he creates it, and then he puts an altar before it. And then the people of Israel, they all start to worship this. They start to make sacrifices to it. It describes them as singing and dancing and doing all of this stuff. And so while this is happening, Moses is up on Mount Sinai, getting the covenant, getting the law, as the people of Israel are below, breaking it, right at the same time. So the Lord says to Moses, while he's giving them this law, giving them all of the commandments, he says, you need to go down to the people because they are forsaking me. They have corrupted themselves. So Moses is hearing this, and he feels the weight of God's wrath and his anger, and God is even indicating that he's wanting to consume them with his wrath, just wipe them all out. And then Moses basically, he pleads for them, he intercedes for them, he says, hold on, just let me go down to them, let me go talk to them, please just don't let your anger burn, your wrath burn on them. So basically, Moses, he comes down, the Lord relents, and Moses goes to the people. And whenever he sees them, he has the tablets there. And him and Joshua, they hear all this sound, this noise. And Joshua is thinking, well, maybe it's something to do with a war. Maybe someone has attacked Israel or something. And Moses basically says it's not about a victory cry or a despair for losing a battle. Rather, it's singing. And Moses, as they get closer, he sees all that is going on. The worship of a golden calf, the singing, the dancing, all of this different things. And then Moses, enraged, he has the tablets of the covenant, and he throws them down, and they shatter. He shatters the 10 Commandments because of the people's sin. And so then what he does from there is he goes to the golden calf, and he basically throws it in the fire. It says he grounds it up and breaks it to where it's basically dust. And some people have asked, well, how is this possible if it was completely gold? Like, how are you going to melt that? Some have understood it to be that it was laced or covered with pieces of gold, but that it was primarily wood. Regardless, we see that somehow Moses destroyed the golden calf. And then, from there even, he says to the people of Israel, he puts it in the water, and he says, you need to drink this. He makes them drink the water with the destroyed idol. And so they all have to drink it. And then he rebukes Aaron for his weak leadership, and Aaron basically starts to try to just blame other people. He first says it was the people, they're evil, they're wicked, they wanted this, I didn't want to do it, but I just did it for them. And then he even seems to say that I just put it in the fire and a calf came out. So I don't know if he's trying to claim some supernatural activity going on there, or if he's just trying to say, I just threw it in, I didn't even know what was going to happen, and now a calf's here. So we just thought that maybe it was from God. So he's trying to make all this blame and stuff like that, but he rebukes him for it. And then what he does is he goes to the outside of the camp, the entrance of the camp, and he basically asks the people of Israel, he gives them a chance of repentance here, and he says, who is on the side of the Lord? And it describes that only the Levites, the tribe of Levi, they come to the side of Moses, the side of the Lord. And so then what he tells them to do, Moses being directed by the Lord, says, you need to gird up yourselves with swords, and we're going to kill many of the leaders of this rebellion. And then it describes that about 3,000 men were killed that day for that sin. So this has all happened, and then Moses, realizing even though this has been addressed to some of the lead rebellions, he understood that their sin had not been clearly atoned for. So then what Moses decides to do then is he says, I need to go back up to the mountain to speak with the Lord in hopes that I might be able to make an atonement for your sin. So Moses, he goes back up to them. He starts to ask the Lord to please forgive them as he's interceding for them. And he basically even says this. He says, but if not, if you won't forgive them, take me. He basically says, wipe me out of the book that you have written. And there's some debate on whether or not this is the book of the Lamb's book of life or whether this is just the book of the living. But he's basically offering himself as a sacrifice. And then God responds telling him, no, you are not fit to make yourself a sacrifice for atonement for these people. And he says that over time, these people will reap what they sow. They will experience judgment for their sin. And then that's basically where this chapter ends. So what are some things that we can take away from this story that is so well known as we look at the people of Israel, we look at Moses and his leadership? What can we learn? Well, the first thing that I'd like to share that is, I think that impatience leads to impulsivity. Impatience leads to impulsivity. See, when we get anxious, or when we start to be very impatient with what our surroundings, what our circumstances are, that very often can translate to us making rash, bad decisions. And that is what we're seeing with the people of Israel. See, they said, Moses is delayed. It's been over a month now. Our leader is gone. Maybe God doesn't care about us anymore. Maybe he's going to just let us die here in the wilderness. So they started to be very impatient, and it led to them asking Aaron to make a god or make them gods. So we see a very clear, impulsive decision to abandon God to seek after other gods. And this is a humbling reminder for all of us. When we experience certain situations, certain circumstances where we're like, God, you need to work right now. I've been praying for this forever. I am struggling with this right now, and God, you need to work. And all of a sudden, if he doesn't work exactly how we want it, we start to act a lot like the people of Israel. We start to decide we're going to do something else. This isn't working. Prayer wasn't working. Asking for counsel, talking with my minister, that wasn't working. God's not giving me exactly what I need right now. Therefore, I'm going to go and turn to the bottle. I'm going to go and turn to a relationship. I'm going to go and turn to something else that is not the Lord. And that is exactly what the people of Israel are doing. And that is why I think we see in Scripture so many times how we are called to wait, to be patient. Psalm 27:14 says, wait on the Lord. Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord. That's a call for us to wait on the Lord in whatever you're going through, whatever circumstance. Don't ever feel like the Lord has abandoned you or does not care for you, that he is not in control of the situation. You are called to wait. And then Psalm 37:7, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret because of him who prospers in his way, because of the man who brings wicked schemes to pass. We are reminded that we can wait and rest in the Lord, that we are called to be patient, because if we fail to be patient, it will lead to being impatient, which leads to being impulsive, which leads to sin. That is why we are called to wait. But if you refuse to wait, do you know what you demonstrate? Impatience demonstrates a lack of faith. Every single time you say, I'm not going to wait, it's not just you being impatient and you just kind of throw it out. I'm just not really someone that likes to wait very much, and it's not a big deal. What you're literally saying is, I don't trust God. You're saying, Lord, I don't really trust who you say that you are. I know that you say that you are good, that you love me, that you're in control, but every single time you are impatient in your life, you're saying, God, I don't believe that. God, I don't trust you. So are you someone, think about this, ask yourself, are you someone who is impatient? Someone who is impulsive? You're constantly making the wrong decision, that you're always feeling like you need to act. If God is saying, wait, are you that person that continues to act, continues to try to do things on your own? Because if you do that, you're going to find yourself in sin, and it's going to reveal your lack of faith in the Lord. So that's the first thing, is impatience leads to impulsivity. The second thing is that idolatry is a great sin. Now that doesn't mean that it's great. Idolatry is great. It's a great sin, right? No, but Moses says in verse 21, verse 30, and verse 31 that they have committed a great sin in idolatry. That is a severe, a serious sin against God. That is what he is saying as he continues to say it 3 times in this text. Israel had committed a great sin of idolatry because idolatry is spiritual adultery. Anytime that you idolize something or someone, you are committing spiritual adultery, because what you are doing is you are placing something in the role of your relationship with God. The first and greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And if you are putting anything in any of those categories as the ultimate source of your affection, then you have made yourself an idol. It's like if you were going to cheat on your spouse, but it's cheating on God. And God reminds us, as he's giving the 10 Commandments orally, he says that he is a jealous God. God will not stand to be second best in your life. God will not stand for you to allow to put anything else ahead of him. Nothing can rival or compare to him. But that is what we see with the people of Israel. See, the people of Israel in verse 1, they asked Aaron to make them gods. Now, it's kind of confusing in the text because they ask to make them gods, create them gods, plural, Elohim. But then in verses 4 and 5, we see that Aaron, he makes a golden calf, singular, and then he attributes it to Yahweh. He says, we will have a feast for the Lord, that this idol is the one who brought us out of Egypt. So it's kind of curious to see exactly which commandment are they actually breaking. The first commandment, that there should be no other gods, or that they should have no graven images, nothing to reflect the things of heaven. I think it's potential there's actually a mixed bag here, where you see both groups. I think you might hear the crowd saying, hey, we just want someone or something to be our God. We want something to lead us. So they're saying plural. Whatever it is, because they just came out of Egypt, which was polytheistic, and maybe they're coming with that and saying, we just want one of those gods to come. But then we see Aaron maybe as being a weak leader who's trying to help and appease the crowd, but also not wanting to go too far crazy off, right? He's thinking, well, maybe what I can do is I can make a bull, and what I can do is I can attribute it to the Lord. I can call this God, the one that we worship, Yahweh, and then what we'll do is when we're worshiping it, we're really just worshiping the Lord. So it's possible that he's maybe trying to make some type of compromise here, but even by doing that, he still is creating something of an idol, a graven image that he's not called to do. But then from there we know that the context of what's going on in their culture is that you have them just leaving after being in Egypt for like 400 years, being exposed to bull worship, in which they had the bull god Apis. There was this god that they probably would have seen regularly. And then we also know that as they're moving forward to Canaan, there is Baal, who is also a bull god, where there's this bull worship. And the bull was a symbol at this time for strength and fertility. So whenever they're doing this, they're basically combining all of these different things together. They're trying to make their culture fit within their worship. And I think that's once again a reminder for us when we worship. You cannot combine culture with your worship. You have to worship the Lord first and foremost, and you don't allow culture to shape how you come to the Lord. But that's what we see here. We see them coming from different groups, and some of the groups are probably worshiping the golden calf and saying it's Yahweh. Others are probably thinking, oh wow, this is Baal that we're coming to see. Maybe some are thinking, oh, this is Apis from behind or from before. There are all these different groups, and it leads into madness where they start to do all of these horrible things of worship. But beyond all of this, saying that it's a worship of maybe another god, I think what makes this sin so great is that Israel, when they committed it, they had every reason not to. That's what I think is even more tragic. Yes, it is spiritual adultery. It is horrible. It's wicked. It's sinful. But they also had every reason not to do it. Think about this. 3 months ago, they were being freed from 400 years of slavery in Egypt. God literally parted the Red Sea for them. He literally let them walk on dry land. He's been leading them with this pillar of fire. He's blinding and destroying their enemies. He's been providing manna, bread from heaven. He's been giving them clean drinking water repeatedly. And then he says, I want to make a covenant with you. I'm going to give you some commandments, some laws on how to live, and I'm going to lead you and protect you. Israel is the only group in history that has received this many miracles in such a small scope of time. But they continue to sin against God. And that's what you're going to see throughout all of Israel's history. They continue to sin against God, even though they have seen all of these miracles just recently. And that's a reminder that is humbling for us, I think, is miracles are not going to ensure that you have faith. So if you're someone that's always dependent on God responding, acting in your life with a miracle, if you're saying that'll make me believe or trust in the Lord, you're just like Israel, who thinks they always need a miracle. They always need God to respond in the exact way that you're asking, and you're going to become impatient, and it's going to lead you into idolatry. So it's a great sin because it's spiritual adultery. It's also a great sin because they had every reason not to, but it's also a great sin because it leads to great consequences. See, you become what you worship. Think about that. Think about the amount of time that you invest your heart, your soul into, what you reflect on, what you put your money to. What you start to invest and serve and worship in your life is actually what you're going to become. And that's what happened with these people because they perverted true worship. And by doing so, they became perverted. In the text, we see that it describes in verse 6 and verse 25 some ominous tones about the people and what they were doing. In verse 6, it says that they rose early to play. And then in verse 25, it says that Moses saw them and they were unrestrained. Because of the bull worship that was common in pagan activity, that they would result to moving into orgies, sexual immorality because of the fertility god. The people that started to worship this bull, even if they were calling him Yahweh, they were resorting back to perverted worship that led to perverted activity. So Moses comes and sees them singing, dancing, all of this stuff, and they are doing sexually immoral acts. So they became perverted because they worshiped something that was perverted. And then verse 7, God says they made themselves corrupt. That's what happens when you turn from God. If you turn to anything else in this world and start to worship it, put it on a pedestal, make sacrifices with your life, with your money, with your time, you will become corrupt. And then it led to 3,000 men being killed. 3,000 men died because of this sin that some of them thought was attributing to Yahweh. But the greatest thing, the reason that the sin is so great, is that idolatry severed their relationship with the Lord. That's the greatest thing. That is why. Whenever Israel went to another god, they severed the relationship. And God, when he's telling Moses to go down, if you notice, he says, your people. He doesn't even say, my people. He says, your people are becoming corrupted. He tells them, he tells him to go down. He leads them and says, destroy them. He says, I want to consume them completely. And then we see the symbolic reference of the tablets being destroyed. That is representative of God breaking the covenant with those people because of their sin. So Moses was showing what God's relationship was like to them. But then lastly, what God does at the end of this story is he says that they are going to experience plagues. They're going to experience consequences for their sin. And then ultimately in chapter 33, we see he takes his tabernacle and moves it outside of the camp, where he would be the presence of the Lord. He ends up moving away from them. And that's what idolatry does. When we start to worship and put something above God, we literally break our fellowship with him. We separate our relationship with the one true God. But it's important to remember that idolatry was not just something that Israel struggled with multiple years ago, thousands of years ago. Idolatry still exists today. And now in America, we might not be seeing a lot of people getting naked, worshiping a bull made out of gold. But we do see tons of idols in American society. We see money and consumerism working 90 hours a week to make more money than your neighbor. Consumerism, comparing always what you have
what you can buy, and thinking that you are better than others because you have bought and got the best stuff. We have entertainment. People will spend hours and hours fulfilling their own needs by watching entertainment or going to certain things, and they won't even go to the Word of God. We have sex in our entertainment, with our money, on our smartphones, in our laptops, on every single ad campaign. Sex is endowed in this culture and is one of the primary gods in this culture. You will see sex as you leave this place today being worshiped by people in the world. And then comfort, just wanting to make it in this world. Just wanting to come to a place where I'm like, I did it. I don't have any more needs. I'm taken care of. What that really is describing is, I don't want to ever have to depend on the Lord for anything. That is also an idol. So we have these idols of money, consumerism, entertainment, sex, comfort. But it can also just be a person, a celebrity. It could be a cross even. The cross reminds us of Christ. But if we just worship a symbol, then it once again could become an idol. So we must remember that everything is pointing to the Lord. That we can't allow anything, no matter how harmless we might think it is, can ever replace God as our primary affection. So we must be careful not to worship the creature over the Creator. And that is what Romans 1:25 is forbidding. So many people will allow these things in the world, these creatures, these created things, to go above the one who created and made all of these things. God is greater than all of the things we could possibly ever worship here. So you need to ask yourself, is there anything that you are placing before the Lord? Anything? Are you someone that is following the Lord, obeying the Lord, reading His Word, praying to Him, surrounding yourself with fellowship of His family, the body of Christ? Or are you someone that is spending your time, your resources? Are you giving it to something else? Is there something else that you are worshiping? Because if so, that is your God. So we see impatience leads to impulsivity. Idolatry is a great sin. And the last thing is intercession is an act of compassion. Intercession is an act of compassion. Because when we look at Moses, we see that he interceded for the people of Israel. And he actually did it twice in the text. And when he does this, he shows that he loves God and he loves his people. Because God was offering to destroy Israel. And he literally said, Moses, I will make you the new Abraham. I'll start over with you. Think about that. If you knew your people or your church, your family was sinning, and then God says, I'll make you something great. You get to be the great leader. A lot of us might be tempted to take him on the offer. See, God was testing Moses to see if he truly loved the people of Israel. That's what he was doing, but Moses responded in righteousness and in love. Moses asked God to have mercy on the people of Israel. But not only that, but then he appeals to God by his reputation and his promise. See, Moses, he cared about God's reputation as he interceded for the people of Israel. He says, what will the people of Egypt think if you have led the people of Israel out, and then you let them perish in the wilderness? See, Moses wasn't thinking about himself. He was thinking about the people of Israel, and he was thinking about God. God, I don't want them to ever think that you are anything less than great. You are the greatest thing. You are the name above all names, and I don't want Egypt to ever think anything else. But then he speaks to his promise, and he says, the promise you have made with Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. Remember that promise you have made to the people of Israel. So he appeals, he intercedes, he prays for these people. And then in verse 30 to 32, we see that Moses sought to make an atonement for their sin by offering himself as a sacrifice. Moses literally says, Lord, please forgive them. and he knew about the Passover lamb. He knew about some of these laws and commandments that were coming in the covenant. He thought, maybe I can offer myself to die for these sinful people. Moses loved them enough to offer himself to die and to suffer for Israel. And this should be a reminder for us, as we're called in 1 Timothy 2:1 to intercede for one another. We need to have love and compassion so much for one another that we are continuously praying. One of the greatest kindness you could ever show for anybody is praying for them. Going to God for them, asking God to work in their life, to forgive them, to heal them, to answer their cries, to be there for them. That is what it is to have compassion for people. And that is what Moses demonstrated on Mount Sinai. He offered himself through prayer and through sacrifice to die for the Lord. But Moses foreshadows something even greater that was spoken on today. And that is Christ's intercession for us. Christ died on the cross, making the atonement that Moses could not. Because Moses was a sinner like all of us. But Jesus lived a perfect life, and then he offered himself as the sacrificial lamb that died on the cross for the sins of the world, so that if you would turn from your sins and trust in him, you could be forgiven. You could obtain eternal life. And now, for anyone that has chosen to follow Christ, because of that great sacrifice for the sinners that Moses and now Christ shows us, we then have a high priest, Jesus Christ, that intercedes for us every single day. When you cry out to the Lord, we have God, we have Christ interceding for us to the Father. So whenever you have these needs, don't feel impatient. Don't turn to idols. Turn to Jesus Christ, and he is going to intercede for you. You have Jesus going to the high king, the creator of all things, our creator. Don't turn to creation. Turn to Christ, and he intercedes for us because he loves us and he has compassion on us. So impatience leads to impulsivity. Idolatry is a great sin, but intercession is an act of compassion. Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this time to gather and to hear this message from your word, Lord. I pray that those who are here today, that they would receive it with joy and gladness, that they would apply it to their lives, that we would remember that you are the one and true God, the only one worthy of worship, that we would never waver in our faith, that we would trust in your goodness and your power, that we would cling to Christ and his atoning work for us on the cross, and that we would never be blinded by the cultural idols that may come into our path, Lord. We love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.